Grandma Elizabeth, the respected matriarch of the prestigious Johnson family, had been absent for 3 long months. During this time, her thoughts had often wandered to her grandson, Tommy Johnson, the man destined to inherit the family empire. Tommy was a figure cloaked in mystery, known for his brilliance and charm, yet a stranger to the public eye. Rarely seen, his face was more of a rumor than a reality within the walls of the family's law firm. The staff buzzed with excitement at the mere thought of his arrival. Whispers spread like wildfire, and a sense of anticipation lingered in the air. "He's so handsome," one junior lawyer gushed, barely above a whisper. "And rich," another added with sparkling eyes. The office was alive with speculation about the elusive bachelor who could have any woman he desired. But unbeknownst to anyone, Tommy was already among them, hiding in plain sight, ready to unveil himself in the most unexpected way. Meanwhile, Grandma Elizabeth had her own plan. No grand entrances, no fanfare. Instead, she disguised herself as an ordinary cleaner, wanting to observe the inner workings of the firm, unrecognized. And she had a secret mission: to find Tommy the one woman who would love him for who he truly was, not for his wealth or status. Dressed in simple clothes and wearing an old watch that seemed to be a cheap knockoff, she stepped into the law firm unnoticed by most. But a group of female employees quickly took notice. "Who let her in?" one sneered, eyeing her with disdain. "Look at that fake watch," another mocked, rolling her eyes. They snickered and pointed, their laughter filling the air. Grandma Elizabeth remained silent, her sharp eyes watching, but when one of the women dared to accuse her of trying to belong to the upper class, the tension quickly escalated. "It's just an old watch," she replied calmly. "Why does it matter to you?" Her words didn't sit well with them. One woman shoved her slightly, and Grandma Elizabeth staggered back, nearly losing her balance. Before things could spiral further, a voice cut through the commotion. "Enough, Amelia," a calm yet firm voice demanded. The room fell silent as a beautiful young lawyer with sharp features stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "What are you doing?" Amelia asked, her arms crossed in a no-nonsense stance. "She's just doing her job. Don't you have anything better to do than bully someone?" The women exchanged awkward glances, but none backed down. "Look who's talking," one sneered, her words dripping with mockery. "Aren't you the one who got dumped for being too nosy? No wonder you're still single." Amelia's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. "I wasn't dumped," she replied coolly. "I left him. I don't tolerate liars, and I certainly don't tolerate cheating. It's called self-respect. You should try it sometime." The words stung, and the group of women muttered among themselves, clearly uncomfortable. One by one, they walked away, their expressions sour, but unwilling to continue the confrontation. Amelia turned to Grandma Elizabeth, her expression softening. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. Grandma Elizabeth nodded, a small smile curving her lips. "Thank you, dear. I appreciate it." "It's nothing," Amelia shrugged. "Just let me know if anyone bothers you again." As Amelia walked away, Grandma Elizabeth watched her, a knowing smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "She's got a good heart," she murmured to herself. "This one's special." Grandma Elizabeth, having spent the day observing the bustling offices of the law firm, was now ready to execute the next part of her plan. In a quiet corner, she adjusted her simple, worn-out clothes and put on the cheap knockoff watch that no one would ever suspect to be of any value. She straightened her back and took a deep breath, preparing to step into the world of the Johnson Empire, unrecognizable and unnoticed. As she made her way through the hallways, the hum of office chatter faded into the background, replaced by the rhythm of her footsteps on the marble floors. No one seemed to pay her any mind. After all, she was just another cleaner. But as she began to push her cart down the hall, a group of women noticed her immediately. The soft murmur of their voices reached her ears, sharp as daggers. "Look at her," one of them whispered, eyeing her with disdain. "She's trying to look rich with that fake watch." Another scoffed, rolling her eyes. "What is she even doing here? Can't even afford a decent timepiece." They laughed, their cruel words filling the air, but Grandma Elizabeth remained silent. Her eyes, however, never left them. She knew exactly who they were, young women seeking to climb the social ladder by any means necessary. But she wasn't here for them. She was here for something much more important. When one of the women, emboldened by the other's mockery, approached her and shoved her lightly. Grandma Elizabeth staggered back, but quickly regained her balance. Her gaze remained steady, piercing the woman's eyes. "It's just an old watch," Grandma Elizabeth said calmly. "Why does it matter to you?" Her voice was so serene, it cut through the tension like a hot knife through butter. But instead of backing down, the group's taunting grew bolder. Before the situation could escalate further, a voice rang out from across the room. "Enough, Rachel," it commanded, sharp and firm. All eyes turned to see a striking young lawyer, Amelia, stepping forward with authority. She stood tall, arms crossed, her eyes narrowing as she glared at the women who had been bullying Grandma Elizabeth. "What are you doing?" Amelia demanded. "She's just doing her job. Do you really have nothing better to do than harass her?" The room fell into an uncomfortable silence as the women exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to respond. "Look who's talking," Rachel sneered, her voice dripping with mockery. "Aren't you the one who got dumped for being too nosy? No wonder you're still single." But Amelia stood her ground, unshaken. "I wasn't dumped," she retorted, her tone cold. "I left him. I don't tolerate liars, and I certainly don't tolerate cheaters. It's called self-respect, something you might want to try sometime." The words stung, and one by one, the women walked away, their faces twisted in irritation, but too ashamed to continue the confrontation. Amelia turned to Grandma Elizabeth, her stern expression softening. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice gentle. Grandma Elizabeth smiled warmly, grateful for the young woman's kindness. "Thank you, dear. I appreciate it." "It's nothing," Amelia said with a shrug, her voice light, "but let me know if anyone bothers you again." As Amelia turned back to her desk, Grandma Elizabeth couldn't help but watch her, spot a small smile curling at the corners of her lips. "She's special," she murmured to herself, her heart swelling with approval. "A good heart. This one might just be the one for Tommy." Later that afternoon, after the tension had died down, Grandma Elizabeth saw the perfect opportunity to approach Amelia. She spotted her sitting at her desk, her focus entirely on the papers before her, and made her way toward her with a quiet determination. Clearing her throat gently, she spoke softly. "Excuse me, dear, could I have a moment of your time?" Amelia looked up from her work, a warm smile spreading across her face as she recognized the older woman, the one who had stood up to the cruel comments earlier. "Of course, ma'am," Amelia said, her voice friendly. "How can I help you?" Grandma Elizabeth settled into the chair across from Amelia, her eyes twinkling with a quiet intensity as she studied the young woman in front of her. "I couldn't help but overhear your colleagues earlier," she began, her tone casual, but there was something more beneath her words. "It seems you're still single," she continued, her gaze piercing, yet kind. "Would you mind marrying my grandson?" Amelia blinked, clearly taken aback by the unexpected question. She laughed nervously, unsure if Grandma Elizabeth was serious. "That's very kind of you to suggest," she said, a light chuckle escaping her lips. "But I'm not looking for love right now. I've had my fair share of heartbreak, and I think I'm better off focusing on my career for the time being." Grandma Elizabeth leaned back in her chair, tilting her head as if considering Amelia's words carefully. "Heartbreak?" she mused, her voice softening. "You're much too young to have gone through so much pain." Amelia hesitated for a moment, then sighed, her eyes momentarily clouding with past memories. "A lot of men have let me down," she confessed, her voice quiet. "My most recent boyfriend, who worked here, actually cheated on me. Not just anywhere, but right here in this office. I caught him red-handed. It was humiliating." Grandma Elizabeth's eyes narrowed, a firm resolve settling in her expression. "You're right to be cautious," she said, her voice steady. "But I can assure you, my grandson is nothing like that. He lost both of his parents in a car accident when he was very young, and I raised him myself. He's a fine young man with a good heart, and I know he would never betray someone like that." Amelia gave Grandma Elizabeth a soft smile, not wanting to offend her. "That's very sweet of you to say," she replied, her tone light, "but I'll think about it." She shrugged, trying to brush off the heaviness of the conversation. "It's just, I'm not ready to jump into anything right now." Just as the conversation was about to settle, the door to the office opened, and a young man stepped inside. He had strikingly handsome features, sharp cheekbones, kind eyes, and an air of quiet elegance that made him stand out even though he was dressed in simple clothes. As he approached Grandma Elizabeth, his face lit up in a familiar smile. "Grandma," he said warmly, his voice gentle and inviting. "There you are." Amelia froze for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. "Grandma?" she murmured, confused. She looked from the man to Grandma Elizabeth, her mind racing. "This is Tommy," Grandma Elizabeth said proudly, introducing him. "He's a new intern here at the firm." Tommy smiled and extended his hand to Amelia, his eyes warm and inviting. "Hi, I'm Tommy. It's nice to meet you." Amelia shook his hand, her cheeks flushing slightly. "I'm Amelia. Welcome to the firm." Tommy's smile widened. "Thanks. I've heard great things about this place, so I'm excited to get started." Grandma Elizabeth watched their interaction with satisfaction, her eyes gleaming with approval. As Tommy returned to his desk, Amelia couldn't help but steal glances at him, feeling a strange pull toward him. She couldn't understand it. There was something about him, something different from the usual men she had met. But the real question lingered in her mind. Could this simple, humble intern really be the grandson of the woman who had just offered her an unusual proposal? Tommy's first day at the law firm was a quiet one. Underneath his simple guise as an intern, he blended seamlessly into the office environment, effortlessly fitting in with the other employees. His demeanor was relaxed, approachable, and yet there was something about him, an understated elegance that seemed to set him apart, even when he wasn't trying. Despite his lowly position, Tommy's sharp intelligence was already starting to shine through. As the day went on, he quietly observed the staff, picking up on the subtle dynamics that governed the firm. His eyes, though soft, missed nothing, and his mind absorbed every detail. Meanwhile, Amelia was deep into her work, drafting legal arguments for a high-profile client. She was the brightest lawyer in the firm, respected by her peers for her quick thinking and sharp legal mind. When she was assigned to work closely with Tommy on a new case, she was initially surprised. After all, he was just an intern, and she hadn't expected him to be placed on such an important project. But when they sat down together to brainstorm, her surprise quickly turned into admiration. Tommy's input was insightful, his legal arguments well-structured and precise. He wasn't just following instructions. He was adding value, offering perspectives that Amelia hadn't considered. His quiet confidence and ease with the material made it clear that he was no ordinary intern. "You're surprisingly good at this," Amelia remarked, glancing at him with a mix of respect and curiosity. She had expected him to be like most interns. Eager, yes, but lacking the experience to truly contribute. But Tommy was different. Tommy chuckled, a warm, self-deprecating smile playing on his lips. "I guess I've read a lot of legal books in my spare time," he said, his tone light but genuine. "I like learning from people who are passionate about what they do, like you." Amelia blushed slightly at the compliment, but it was clear from her smile that she appreciated it. "Thanks," she said, her voice softening. "That means a lot." The hours flew by as they continued working together, and what had started as a professional partnership began to feel more comfortable, more natural. Laughter occasionally broke out between them, and moments of shared understanding were frequent. Tommy's quiet, unassuming nature made him easy to talk to, and despite his apparent humility, Amelia found herself beginning to look forward to their time together. Unbeknownst to both of them, Grandma Elizabeth, who had been watching from a distance, saw the growing connection between Tommy and Amelia with a knowing smile. From where she stood, she could see how well they complemented each other. Her heart swelled with pride, and as she quietly pushed her cleaning cart past their desks, she couldn't help but murmur to herself, "They're starting to get along. This is just the beginning." As the days passed, the office environment grew increasingly tense. While Tommy and Amelia worked closely together, their growing camaraderie didn't go unnoticed, especially by Rachel Miller, one of the firm's most ambitious lawyers. Rachel had always prided herself on her competitive edge, and she viewed anyone who stood in her way as a threat. Seeing Amelia, once a colleague she could easily outshine, now getting special attention from Tommy, only fueled Rachel's jealousy. The whispers began, quiet at first, but soon Rachel's bitterness found its voice. One afternoon, as Amelia walked back to her desk, Rachel, with a smirk plastered on her face, blocked her path. "Well, well, if it isn't the queen of mediocrity," Rachel said loudly enough for the entire office to hear. Her tone dripped with mockery. Don't even think about trying to join Mr. Johnson's team. He would never pick someone like you. Amelia stopped in her tracks, her heart sinking. She tried to ignore Rachel's taunts, but the words stung. You don't belong in his league, Amelia. Rachel continued, her voice sharp, drawing the attention of nearby employees who stopped to listen. Why don't you stick to minor cases and leave the big leagues to the real lawyers, those of us who actually belong here? Before Amelia could respond, Tommy, who had been sitting quietly at his desk, stood up. His expression was calm but unwavering, a silent strength radiating from him. Without a second thought, he stepped between Rachel and Amelia, his eyes locked on Rachel's with quiet authority. That's enough, he said firmly, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Amelia is a fantastic lawyer, and she works harder than anyone here. If Mr. Johnson values talent, he will see that in her before anyone else. Rachel raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by Tommy's intervention. And who do you think you are? She sneered, sizing him up with a smug look. An intern trying to defend her? What right do you have to speak to me like that? I might be just an intern, Tommy replied, his voice still calm, but I know that respect and kindness go a long way, and that's something you clearly don't understand. Rachel scoffed, rolling her eyes. You're pathetic, she muttered, but even as she tried to strike back, there was a noticeable unease in her voice. With a dismissive wave, she turned and walked away, her pride wounded, but her words falling flat in the face of Tommy's quiet dignity. Amelia, who had been watching the exchange in stunned silence, felt a wave of gratitude and relief wash over her. Thank you, she said softly, her voice tinged with emotion. She hadn't expected Tommy to stand up for her like that, especially not in front of everyone. Tommy smiled warmly, a reassuring glint in his eyes. I don't like seeing good people treated unfairly, he said, shrugging as if the whole thing hadn't been a big deal. But to Amelia, it meant everything. In that moment, something shifted inside her, and she found herself looking at him with newfound admiration. Tommy wasn't just kind and humble, he was someone who would protect what was right, no matter the cost. And as the office buzzed with whispers and gossip, Amelia felt a quiet sense of resolve settling in her chest. She wasn't alone anymore. The tension in the office had reached a boiling point, and it was clear that things couldn't remain hidden much longer. Tommy, after weeks of carefully watching and gathering his thoughts, had reached a decision. It was time to reveal the truth about who he really was. The secret he'd carried so carefully, the identity he'd kept hidden under the guise of an intern, had to come out. But as he paced in the quiet solitude of his office, he could feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him. Would people see him as a fraud, a liar? Would Amelia still look at him the same way after everything came to light? His heart raced with uncertainty. That afternoon, Tommy decided to take the plunge. With a deep breath, he stood up from his desk, his mind set. As he made his way through the firm, he couldn't help but notice the curious glances from employees, their whispers barely contained as they watched him approach the conference room. The room fell silent as Tommy entered. His usual demeanor, calm and unassuming, was replaced by a quiet resolve, a man determined to face the truth. Everyone, listen up, Tommy began, his voice steady, drawing the eyes of everyone in the room. The murmurs that had been swirling around the office halted instantly, the air thick with anticipation. I'm not just an intern. My real name is Tom Johnson, and I've been working here undercover to understand how things really run at this firm. A stunned silence fell over the room, and for a moment, no one spoke. It was as though the very air had been sucked out of the office. Then, the laughter began. Rachel, the ever-skeptical lawyer, burst out laughing, her voice ringing out in disbelief. You? Tom Johnson? She scoffed. That's the funniest thing I've heard all year. What are you trying to pull here? Amelia, still processing the gravity of Tommy's words, stood frozen, her mind reeling. Tommy, please, she whispered urgently, pulling him aside. Are you really trying to get yourself in trouble? You could be sued for impersonating Mr. Johnson. This is insane. Stop it before it gets worse. Tommy looked at her, his expression a mix of frustration and sadness. I'm not pretending, he said quietly, his voice full of sincerity. I am Tom Johnson. Amelia's heart sank as she met his gaze. Her eyes searched his face, trying to find the truth, but all she saw was honesty, raw and unflinching. Still, her mind refused to believe what he was saying. Tommy, please, you have to stop this, she pleaded, her voice shaking. What if the real Mr. Johnson finds out? You could lose everything. But Tommy stood firm, his shoulders squared as he looked back at her. I've spent too long hiding, he said, his tone calm yet resolute. I'm done with that. I can't keep lying to you, Amelia. Before the tension could escalate any further, Mark, who had been lurking in the background, decided to add fuel to the fire. He smirked as he approached, clearly relishing the chaos. Well, well, Amelia, he sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. You really know how to pick them, don't you? A poor intern pretending to be Tom Johnson? That's a new low. Tommy's eyes narrowed, his fists clenching at his sides. Mark, he said, his voice low but sharp, you can insult me all you want, but leave Amelia out of this. Mark sneered back, his voice thick with derision. Oh, look at you, he taunted. Playing the hero. You're nothing but a nobody, a fake lawyer, a fake Johnson. What's next, huh? Tommy, his patience wearing thin, stepped closer. You're wrong, Mark. Not only have you insulted me, but you've spread lies about Amelia. That's defamation, and you could be sued for it. Before Mark could retaliate, the HR manager stepped into the room, flanked by security. Mark, she said, her voice firm, you've been warned multiple times about your behavior. This is the final straw. You're terminated. Gather your things and leave immediately. Mark's face turned beet red with anger as he was escorted out of the room, muttering curses under his breath. Tommy stood, still visibly tense, but a weight seemed to lift off his shoulders. He had done it. He had revealed the truth. Yet the aftermath still hung heavy in the air. Amelia, her heart pounding, pulled Tommy aside once more. What if this goes wrong? She whispered, her voice full of concern. What if Mark tells the real Mr. Johnson about all of this? You could lose everything. Tommy sighed, his frustration clear, but he remained resolute. I don't care about the consequences anymore, he said softly. I just want you to know the truth. I'm not trying to hurt you. I never wanted to deceive you. Amelia looked at him, torn between disbelief and understanding. I don't know how to help you, she admitted, her voice soft. But when Mr. Johnson finally arrives, I'll talk to him. I'll explain everything and try to stop him from suing you. Tommy nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude. Thank you, Amelia. I'll be waiting for you to tell the truth. The room was still filled with the echoes of the truth, yet deep down, Tommy knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger journey, one filled with uncertainty, but also with the promise of honesty and the hope that he could rebuild the trust that had been broken. As the days passed, Tommy and Amelia's bond deepened. They worked late together, their conversations flowing effortlessly, laughter becoming more frequent. Tommy's quiet charm and thoughtful nature drew Amelia in, making her feel valued in ways she hadn't experienced before. One evening, Tommy, with his usual warmth, asked her out on a proper date. Amelia hesitated only for a moment before agreeing, the spark between them undeniable. As their relationship blossomed, Emily began to feel a sense of security she hadn't known in a long time, but that security was soon threatened. Rachel's jealousy simmered beneath the surface, and she was determined to destroy their budding romance. Despite her attempts to sabotage them, Tommy remained steadfast, and Amelia realized that with him, she could face anything. As Tommy and Amelia grew closer, the arrival of Isabel Moore, a figure from Tommy's past, brought a new wave of tension. Isabel, with her stunning beauty and sharp demeanor, seemed to carry an air of entitlement. She wasn't about to let go of her hold on Tommy without a fight. Her sudden appearance at the office, flashing her wealth and connections, sent a ripple of doubt through Amelia. The icy confrontation between the two women was inevitable. But Amelia, with her newfound confidence, held her ground. She wasn't intimidated by Isabel's charm or her past with Tommy. Despite Isabel's manipulative efforts, Amelia realized that her love for Tommy was unshakable, and nothing from the past could break their bond. Grandma Elizabeth, ever the strategist, decided it was time to push things forward. With a sly smile, she orchestrated a meeting between Tommy and Amelia, feigning illness to make the situation seem urgent. As they sat beside her, Grandma Elizabeth looked at them both, her frail hand resting on theirs. I know it's sudden, she murmured softly, but Tommy, you two belong together. Will you consider getting married? The room seemed to hold its breath, and Amelia, her heart racing, looked at Tommy. Without hesitation, he took her hand, his voice steady. I love you, Amelia. Will you marry me? Overwhelmed, Amelia nodded, her voice a whisper of affirmation. Yes, Tommy, I will. Grandma Elizabeth beamed, her plan coming to fruition as the couple embraced, ready to face whatever came next, together. The wedding was simple, yet perfect. Amelia, in a modest white dress, radiated beauty that outshone any diamond, while Tommy stood by her side in a crisp suit, his eyes full of love and nervousness. As they exchanged vows, the weight of their journey, the secrets, the misunderstandings, and the struggles melted away. Grandma Elizabeth, watching with tears of joy in her eyes, knew her plan had worked. That evening, as they celebrated quietly, Tommy pulled Amelia close, whispering, I'm so glad we're finally here. Amelia smiled, her heart full, knowing they had overcome everything together. As they stepped into their new life, hand in hand, the future felt brighter than ever.